Welcome to What's That Pen, helping you find your next perfect pen. And today's pen is one that I get asked about all the time. And I also hear a lot of people tell beginners to use this one as your first pen. And today we will be talking about why I don't agree with that. But if you were wondering, we are looking at the Tombow ABT dual brush pen, and these are just my extras. So these Tombow dual brush pens are very popular. They're very widely known, and I believe that a lot of that is because there are so many different colors available. There are 108 as of right now, but one downside is that they are $3.19 per pen on the Tombow website. Of course, you can get packs of pens, but then you are spending usually between $14 to $20 something for a handful of pens. And when there are 108 to collect, that can really add up. So deciding if this is the right pen for you is going to be very important before you start to make that financial commitment. Let's talk about the ink in these pens. Now there are the two tips. There's one that is a brush tip, and then there is a bullet tip. They are the same color in these pens. Now these are a water-based color, which means that they try to tell you that you can use them as a watercolor, but they are not specifically designed for that. And in the future, when I do some specific comparisons of watercolor pens that you can use, this will be one of them. And I'm going to say that, spoiler alert, it's not going to be one of the best. So keep that in mind, that while they say that that is possible, it's probably not what you will use these pens for the most. There are better pens for that specific use. Now the ink type, it's water soluble, but it is also acid-free, which has been something that sometimes is really hard to figure out about some of the pens that we're using. So that is a huge plus, that it's acid-free, which means that it won't discolor your paper. Here's the thing though about it being water-based. If you're not looking at it as watercolorable, you are able to blend these colors together really quite nicely. And that's something that I go into in crazy amounts of depth in my online course, Beyond Basics and Black, where we really focus on how to make these blend seamlessly and in a way that makes it look like it's a super, super smooth, natural blend. Now, interesting fact about these brush pen tips. They are a brush nib, and I have always thought that they were made of felt material because, another spoiler alert here, they fray. And they fray hard. It's not going to last for a super long time before you start to notice extra little marks on the edge of any of your strokes, which is why I have almost two of every single color. But in my research, I found out that these are nylon nibs, which I'm going to question, because normally nylon nibs mean that they last for a very long time. You can be rough on them and they will still last. However, these nibs will not last very long if you're rough on them. You need to make sure you use them on ultra smooth paper. So that's either a marker paper, a Bristol paper, or HP LaserJet paper, which I've linked down below, which is also a good and slightly more cost-efficient option. Let's put a question mark on the nylon. Now, these pens are quite large and they're also very flexible. This is nice because it means you can get a nice thick downstroke, but it also means that it's a little bit hard to have absolutely perfect upstrokes every single time, especially if you're working in a small area. Pens this big mean you need to be writing big as well. For instance, I just used these to create a poster for my sister-in-law for her baby shower, and each word, 5 or 6 letters, ended up being about this wide. Look at this, I've even got it here to show you. The letters are really, really large, and I did widen them a little bit, but this is sort of the scale of things that you're going to be using these pens for. My preferred My preferred use for these pens is to use an extra big mixed media notepad because it is larger than the others. It's about a 12 by 16 inch, and I almost never use them on regular size paper. There's just not enough space to get your upstrokes and your downstrokes large enough for nice smooth strokes. Your thick line can be super thick. This is probably one of the thickest pens that we have looked at so far. That is a huge plus, that you can get those thick lines. And your thin lines still stay relatively thin, so you're getting quite a bit of contrast between the size of the two lines, and that is often what makes your brush lettering look amazing and pop off the page. You want to make sure that your pen has enough flex that you get good contrast. Let's look at our nib rebound. So going up and down really quickly, we're just pushing in one direction, and take a look at the pen. There's a tiny bit of a curve, but not a lot. So the rebound is actually pretty strong on these. I would say that it has above average rebound. It doesn't get stuck in one sideways position. The ink quality for these, and you can see the colors are super vibrant. So while they do fray, the reason that I keep buying more pens and then a backup is because the colors are gorgeous and they can mix together really nicely, and there are some very unique colors in this set. The writing size for these though is huge, absolutely huge. It is large, and it is even more than large. Keep that in mind for your projects. If you want to be writing something small, these are not the pens for you. Let's look at their juiciness, which means how easy they are to smudge. Color it in and smear it out, and there is some smear. Part of it being a water-based pen means that the water needs to dry before the ink is set. So you're going to need to go slower. Let's do our 3-second test. 1, 2, 3, and smear. There's still a tiny bit of smear. Now, one other thing I have noticed so much, if you have sweaty hands or if you've put on moisturizer or anything like that, and you go back over it with your hand, here, let's see if I can make it work. You are going to end up with quite a bit of color on your hand here. Oh, I've already got some blue. And you can easily smudge your page. So keep in mind that when you're using these, you want to make sure that you put a piece of paper under your hand or something so that the oils and water on your hand don't get added to your piece and smear any of your ink. Now, ease of transition, I feel like this one's going to be extra challenging because of how small these circles are. We've already talked about how big your letters and strokes need to be with these pens, so let's see how this goes. Well, not terrible. Pat on the back for me. Your upstroke and downstroke transitions with this pen are actually pretty smooth, and a lot of that is due to the nib rebound. It goes back into its original shape like this quite well, which makes your ease of transition, I would probably say that it's a yay. There wasn't too much to have to worry about. There is a bit of a pinch point, as I like to call it, down at the bottom and the top where the nib width goes from thick to thin, and it almost gets a tiny little bit smaller down here. And that would be more obvious on any downstroke to upstroke transitions that are faster, but that's definitely something that you can deal with. So overall, these pens are sort of a tricky one. They're a bit of a mixed bag. I would say that they are not a good pen for beginners, not because there isn't great nib rebound and good ease of transition, but because you need to write so large. And typically when you are beginning and practicing, you're writing smaller because of the concentration that it takes. This is a good pen if you are well established already in your brush lettering. You know your downstroke to upstroke transitions, you don't have very wiggly upstrokes anymore, and you want to be doing something that is larger in scale and size. If you want to keep it small, definitely do not think about these pens as an option. One other nice thing that is just sort of a little trick that I use quite a bit is when I'm doing my writing, and if I've used the brush nib, especially if it started to fray, the fact that there is a bullet tip on the other side is really nice because you can just go in, it's the exact same color, and you can smooth out any of those lines. It's a little bit, I'm not going to call it a cheat, I'm going to call it a strategy, but it's a good way to sort of recover that pen for a little bit longer until you can get your replacement. So let's look at the pros and cons of this pen. One of the cons definitely has to be the price. At $3.19 per pen, they are one of the most expensive pens that you can get. And the fact that sometimes you do need to replace them for frayed nibs makes that $3.19 seem like it might be too much for what the pen is. One other thing that typically is a negative is that you have to write very large, which makes this not the ideal brush pen for a beginner. It would be very, very frustrating to use if you are beginning or even only a little bit into your lettering journey, but as you get more comfortable, you can use it for big projects. So it's also a bit of a pro that it's great for big projects because you can do large scale lettering. You can also do gorgeous blending where you can blend one color into the other because of the water soluble properties of this. And it has really great ease of transition. It has gorgeous ink colors, fully saturated, and it has fantastic nib rebound. So these pens are an investment. They are not an investment that you can expect to last forever, which is unfortunate, but you can't really expect anything to last forever. So as long as you are being very careful with the tips, as long as you are using the smoothest paper possible and hopefully finding them on sale, if you are looking to do larger scale writing and you are not a beginner, these could be a good option for you. I personally like them. You can see that I have quite a few, but I would not say that they are the best pen for longevity, but they are very fun. The colors, it just gets me. So I hope that that recap of these pens was helpful for you. Remember, they are recommended for quite a few beginners, but I would say that a better option, even within the Tombow line, would be the Tombow Funosuke pen. It is much smaller. You would want to get the hard nib, and that is hands down one of the best pens to learn with. So if you're starting, don't get these ones. I know the colors are tempting, but that's why their beginner pack that you can also get has those pens with a few of these. But tiny makes it so much easier. If you have a pen that you want to see reviewed, just let me know in the comments down below and I will head out to the store and grab that so that we can review it together. I make sure that I buy almost all of my supplies so that I can be brutally honest in my reviews that I'm sharing with you. However, some of these pens Tombow did gift to me because I did their beginning and advanced packaging. But you can see that that does not change my review. The review is always brutally honest, even if there is a coupon code attached. Make sure that you subscribe because while these ones were asked about a lot, there are tons more that I have to show you. And just the other day in the mail from Amazon, I got some real junk. And I want to share those with you too. But they're going back, so we're not even taking them out of the package. Subscribe down below so you don't miss any of those stinkers. Or the good ones too.